Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of AD 33. My name is Sean Hussey. It's so good to be with you today. So we got a great episode for you today. I'm really excited to dive into it. For many of you watching this will know of a Christian music artist, a Christian artist named Forrest Frank. He's got a ton of awesome songs and great songs. I love him. My kids love him. You know, we listen to him all the time. And very recently, there's been a sort of a situation, a dialogue, a back and forth on social media between him, Forrest Frank, and another popular Christian artist, Corey Asbury. And a lot of people have been commenting on this back and forth. Forrest Frank responded to a video that Corey Asbury made. And there's been a lot of great feedback and comments, and Forrest Frank himself had some great things to say. But there is one element of this conversation, of this dialogue, that I haven't seen anybody talking about. And so I want to bring this up. I want to bring up I think this is an opportunity to bring up a really important issue in this video. Before I dive too much into this, though, I just want to say, if you haven't already, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out so much. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a backstory setup here, and then we'll watch a clip, and then we'll bring up the issue that I think is worth talking about. So Forrest Frank, several weeks ago now, broke his back, and he sort of posted this experience on social media, and he was confined to a bed for at least a couple of weeks. It seemed like he had a really supernatural healing. It's really kind of a cool story there in and of itself. But while he was laying on his back and completely with a broken, fractured back and healing, he uses an opportunity to reflect and to write, and he put out some pretty cool songs. One song is called God's Got My Back, clearly related to the incident that he had, and the song did really well. There was another song called Lemonade that did really well. These songs are top of the charts as far as I'm understanding, but across the genres. And so these songs did really well. There was another artist, his name was Crowder, and he broke his leg, I think. And then he wrote a song with Forrest Frank based on his broken leg. And so you noticed a lot of other Christian artists sort of taking advantage of this and just sort of making light of the situation and putting out their own videos of injuries or a bee sting for somebody or whatever injury, broken tailbone, different ones that I saw. And there were lots of these videos of people just sort of getting injured, posting it on social media and making a fake song about it, just sort of making light of or making fun out of the situation of what happened to Forrest Frank for real. But there was one of these videos in particular that seemed to get a lot of attention and certainly caught my attention when I first saw it. It's a little bit cringy of a video too, I thought, but it got my attention. It got Forrest Frank's attention as well. And enough so of all of the videos for Forrest Frank himself to make a response video about it. So because of this, there's just been a lot of attention around it. But I think the video itself is worthy of responding to from a Catholic perspective and highlighting a particular issue that it clearly raises up that I'm surprised that nobody's talking about in regard to the whole thing. And so what we'll do here is we just want to play this. So this video comes from Corey Asbury's Instagram account. It was a post that he made. And again, it's kind of one of these response videos playing off of the Forrest Frank broken back situation. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at this video, and then I want to highlight the main thing, I think the main issue that nobody's talking about, and talk about how we should think about it from a Christian perspective.
Home from the hospital, and honestly, the meds are starting to wear off. Here's the video. A little trigger warning, but here's the video.
What's up, guys? I'm on the table getting a vasectomy.
So we didn't plan this, but my boy Forrest, he turned lemons into lemonade, and my guy Crowder, he's standing on the rock with a broken leg. So I figured I still got use of my hands. I could still make music. So I'm sitting here and decided to cook this song up, and hope it encourages y'all.
Snip, snip season, but we stay winning. Souls, spread the gospel, not my seed. Grace runs deeper than my jeans. Ain't about my legacy. Kingdom come, still get run. Snip, snip, like we cutting the ribbon. Ain't a grand opening, but it's just the beginning. Left the block, closed up shop, but my loins stay winning. Fruit of the spirit, man, that's what I'm living. They can't take my seed, but they can take my song. No swimmers in the pool, but he's still on the throne. The eternity still on top of me. Daddy's DNA, that's my only theology.
There we go.
All right, that it? Is that the song?
That's it.
Okay. All right, so you heard the song. I think most people who heard the song have a little bit of a cringe. No matter what you think about it, it's like, I don't know, even Forrest Frank in his response, he didn't even play the whole clip. And so Forrest Frank does not respond to the whole injury of the vasectomy in the song that he really made about it. What Forrest Frank did, which is really cool, and just like a huge shout out to him. Everything that I see of Forrest Frank, I just like the guy more and more every
You're
time.
a little bit obsessed, and that's okay.
Yeah, I just appreciate him and really respect him a lot. And he strikes me as an extremely genuine and sincere person.
Same.
And he's definitely extremely famous. And so it's just cool to see his humility, and like he seems pretty grounded despite the fame that he's gained. And he placed an emphasis on using it as an opportunity where he felt like actually from his perspective, these different videos seemed to be sort of actually making fun of a situation that was very serious for him and sort of made light of it. And so kind of hurt his feelings, it seemed like. And so he was just like kind of owned up to that fact, but still uses an opportunity to like just offer Corey grace. And they're kind of been going back and forth on even maybe writing a song that can come out of it. So that's pretty cool. I thought that was a great response. I have no idea what he thinks about the issue of vasectomies or the broader issue of contraception. But this is the topic that I think is important for us to talk about. I can't believe just how much traction this video is getting, and I really haven't seen much conversation at all around like part of the reason the video is problematic, this one in particular, is because it's talking about a vasectomy and making light of it and making a song out of it kind of a thing and normalizing it completely from a Christian perspective, which I just think is a little bit problematic.
Yeah. But I think before we dive into that topic, I think we should be clear that the clip that we just posted, Corey Asbury has deleted and apologized for. So just give him full credit for that.
Yeah.
We don't want to add to any of the drama of any of this.
No.
You know, there's enough drama and hatred and vitriol online, and we're not adding to that at all. And so it's always good to see a sincere apology and people taking steps to make up for any hurt that they've caused. So Forrest expressed that it hurt his feelings, and Corey took it down and released an apology video for that. But with that being said, the apology video had nothing to do with the fake injury that he had.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's a good. So we're not throwing any stones here at all, and nor are we throwing any judgment towards Corey or Forrest or anybody else who this is going to relate to or connect to them in any kind of way or hit home to them. But I do think it raises the issue. I mean, Forrest Frank talked the fact that these videos raise the broader issue of like how do we approach social media with discernment and prudence. But the video itself that Corey put out there, it raises the broader issue of how should we think about vasectomies or contraception, the issue of contraception more broadly from a Christian perspective. I'm not naive to the fact that I'm in the minority, that we're in the minority here, even in large part between like people who call themselves Catholic. Of course, the teaching
Every week, Sunday mass going.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, people who the church itself, the Catholic Church, teaches against the use of all forms of artificial contraception, even in the context of marriage. And so, like, I understand that I'm in the minority, and in the Protestant world, I understand that it's normalized. And this video is just evidence of that. And the comments that I read on the video of the how funny this was, it just shows that I understand that it's normal, especially in non-Catholic Christian circles, that this isn't something that's outright condemned by these different traditions, that it is acceptable and normal and for a lot of Christians in their marriages to have a vasectomy and to make fun of it, to make jokes about it. So I understand, so definitely I'm not like condemning anybody or throwing stones here. No. But I just think it is a good opportunity for us to just like take a step back and let's just talk about the issue of contraception from a Christian perspective, the issue of vasectomies, which are a kind of contraception, a more of a permanent kind of contraception that, a procedure that you can opt in for. And so this is a good topic. I just think like one appeal that I want to make, like as I watch this video, it's like just because something is normal doesn't mean it's good for us. There's been lots of things within Christianity, practices in Christianity, and just in the broader world, of course, in our society, that have been normalized, but they're not good for us. And I would argue that contraception is extremely normal, but this doesn't mean it's good for us. And I think that the Catholic Church has maintained a consistent and historic position, recognizing the dignity of the human person and the nature of human sexuality and why contraception doesn't fit with those things. And so from a Christian perspective, my appeal to all Christians listening to this and watching this, like whether you're Catholic or Orthodox or Protestant of any kind, my appeal to you is just to like take a look at the historic and consistent and unwavering and universal Christian teaching on the issue of contraception. I just find it to be interesting that for 2,000 years, Christians have universally and unwaveringly been against the use of all forms of contraception, even within marriage. And that the idea of Christians supporting contraception or making jokes about getting vasectomies in their marriage to stop having kids, this is just like novel in terms of like a Christian perspective on marriage and family and having children. Like if you look at the history of the church, Christians were always against it for 2,000 years, 1,900 years. The first time in history of the church that we ever see in Christendom, that we ever see in sort of an introduction of the permission of contraception in the context of marriage was not until 1930. And this took place by the Anglican Church at the Lambeth Conference, I believe it was called, in 1930. And this particular conference allowed for the use of contraception in marriage under very specific instances. When you look back at it now, it's 100 years ago. You can look back at that document now, and I've read the relevant section, and it can come across as pretty mild, pretty modest, a tiny concession, just the tiniest little concession to allow for contraception in certain instances. But historically what's happened is that actually just that little concession opened the floodgates. And one after the other, since 1930, every single Protestant denomination has reversed, it changed its teaching and permitted the use of contraception within marriage under certain conditions. All the way to the fact today where we have Christian worship artists, again, I'm not condemning him, but we have Christian worship artists where it's so normalized to use contraception and to get vasectomies in a marriage that you can make jokes about it and write a fake song about it because this is just kind of like what a lot of us do. We've already had kids, and so it's the normal thing to use contraception to stop having kids.
And it's not even a scandal.
It's not a scandal. It's not a scandal for anybody. But I just want Christians to be able to see that this is a radical departure from Christian doctrine and teaching for 2,000 years. Even if you think the Catholic Church is the only church, even Orthodoxy doesn't have a consistent, unanimous teaching against contraception. Only the Catholic Church has maintained universally and consistently the historic Christian teaching on this. And I think that says something. You still may disagree with that at the end of the day, but I just think it's a matter of history. It's a matter of fact that the Catholic Church is the only church that has not changed its teachings. And I don't think there's any new insights into the scriptures that have caused the change in the way in which we use contraception in marriages as Christians. I think it's a change in culture and change caused by the sexual revolution and the invention of newer means of contraception that made it more convenient and more easier. That's just been infiltrated into the life of the church, into Catholics' lives, and just Christians in general, and even Christian denominations directly in their teaching, where they no longer condemn the use of artificial contraception. I was thinking about like a particular passage that came to my mind from Scripture, and this could be applied to many things, but it just came to my mind on this conversation. So this is Paul's letter to Timothy, chapter 4. He says in verse 3 of chapter 4 to his letter to Timothy, he says, "For the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own likings, and will turn away from listening to the truth and wander into myths." And so it's always a temptation in the Christian life to wander away from the truth and into to find teachers that suit your own likings and interests, or in the case of contraception, find teachers who support the use of contraception in marriage, who are Christians, and that seems to make life a whole lot more convenient for a Christian married couple. So I understand the appeal and the pull of that, but this is a wandering away from the truth from a Christian perspective. This is a wandering away from the consistent and the universal historic Christian position that only the Catholic Church continues to hold. And so I just think I'm lamenting here a little bit of the sadness of the fact of how far we've come, and that this is not something that we agree upon as Christians. But historically we have. It's not like this was nothing to do with the Protestant Reformation. This has nothing to do with the Great Schism between East and West. Like, all of those breaks, unfortunate breaks and divisions in the church, we've always maintained a unity on the nature of marriage, and specifically on the nature of the sexual act and the ends of procreation and unity, and always preserving those two ends. So it's only just very recently in the history of the church that this has become a point of contention where Catholics are now separated from many of our Protestant brothers and sisters on this issue, and I just think that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I was just reading a thread on Reddit, in the Christianity subreddit, which is a total mixed bag of things. But someone asked the question, why aren't you Catholic? And one of the top responses, which means that a lot of people have agreed with it and upvoted it, is the Catholic sexual ethics is too convoluted and confusing. And that was just kind of baffling to me, because it might be hard.
Yes.
It might be hard and challenging. But it's really pretty simple.
Yes.
Like, the sexual act has two purposes.
Yes.
That's like the unity of spouses,
yes,
and for the procreation of children.
Yes.
Like, that's the Catholic sexual ethic. It's not complicated.
And that's
it's not easy.
No.
But it's not complicated.
And what I love about it is there's a consistency to that ethic. There's a consistency of application to that moral theology that I think allows our view of sexuality, broadly speaking, to actually be consistent. And it makes sense, even if you disagree with it, there is a consistency to the Catholic position that I actually don't think Protestants have. There's an inconsistency because they allow for the deliberate frustration of the procreative faculty in some instances, but not in all, that they condemn. And I think whenever you start to allow for the deliberate frustration of one of the primary purposes of sex, then you don't really have a consistent foundation and basis to then reject it or deny it, or to say it's immoral to frustrate it in other cases. So I think the Catholic position at least has a really solid base and consistency. And like I said, it has a better track record, has a much better and longer track record. For those who are interested and are maybe less familiar, or just to bring a little bit of clarity on that perspective from a Catholic theological perspective, as Ben has already pointed out, and many of you are probably familiar with, and anybody could probably be familiar with this if they just thought about it deeply for a little bit, that when we look at the nature of sex and what it's for, we can recognize pretty intuitively, actually, and pretty quickly, that sex is for the unity of the spouses. Sex itself is an expression of marital love. So it's for the unity of the spouses and for the procreation of offspring. And both of these ends are very essential. This is why we say, we have the euphemisms that, like, making love and making babies. Okay? People kind of can intuit the fact that these are both essential elements of the sexual embrace, or the marital act, the conjugal act, whatever you want to call it. This is what the Catechism says, paragraph 2366. Fecundity is a gift. An end of marriage for conjugal love naturally tends to be fruitful. This is a little bit of a longer quote here, so bear with me. I think it's just really, really good. A child does not come from outside as something added on to the mutual love of the spouses, but springs from the very heart of that mutual giving as its fruit and fulfillment. So the church, this is important, is on the side of life, and it teaches that it is necessary that each and every marriage act remain ordered per se to the procreation of human life. This particular doctrine, expounded on numerous occasions by the magisterium, is based on the inseparable connection established by God, which man on his own initiative may not break, between the unitive significance and the procreative significance, which are both inherent to the marriage act. Like many times, I think that's just kind of very succinctly and beautifully said there, highlighting again that we don't actually have the power to deliberately frustrate the procreative dimension of the sexual act because God designed it. And so it's not in accord with the nature. It doesn't mean that each and every single sexual act results in a baby. It just means that we can't deliberately introduce or thwart this primary either one actually. We can't deliberately thwart or frustrate either purpose of the sexual act, either unity or procreation. And the contraception side has to do with this idea of deliberately frustrating the procreative faculty that God has given us. That's essential to the sexual act, to the marital act. And so a vasectomy would be an example of this. A vasectomy would deliberately frustrate the sexual faculty so that the sexual act is not actually ordered through our own deliberate choice. It's not ordered towards the procreation of human life. And I think that's problematic from the perspective of natural law whenever you frustrate the nature of what sex is for in that particular way.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully said.
Yeah.
I think then a common objection or pushback is well, then are we just supposed to have an infinite number of kids? Is there supposed to be are we just supposed to have every 9 months have a baby?
Yes.
How would you respond to that?
Well, no, not necessarily. Obviously, you're not required to have as many children as absolutely humanly possible. And the church recognizes that there are just and good reasons that couples in their prayer and discernment can decide to either postpone or delay the birth of children or the conception of children. And that delay could be indefinite as well. And there are means in accord with God's plan for sexuality and human dignity in order to be able to do that. By our very nature, human beings, actually husbands and wives, are sexually receptive at all times of the month. But we can't actually get pregnant at all times of the month. And this is not actually true for all species, for all other kinds of animals. There are some animals that are only sexually receptive in times whenever they're also fertile. And that's not true for human beings. And so it just tells us that because we're sexually receptive in times when it's impossible actually to conceive a child, it seems to indicate or point towards the fact that married couples can still come together in a marital embrace, even if they are not sexually receptive or they're sexually receptive, but they're not fertile. They couldn't conceive a child in those instances. We call this, from a Catholic perspective, the tracking of a woman's fertility, either to achieve or to postpone pregnancy, something called natural family planning, which, by the way, the current versions of natural family planning use lots of artificial technology to have a better understanding of the women's cycle so that couples can better achieve or postpone pregnancy. And so it raises an important point that the church does not condemn vasectomies or other kinds of birth controls because they are artificial. That really has nothing to do with it. Tons of medicine is artificial. Medicine helps our bodies to work in accord with the way in which they're supposed to. We might have a defect or a sickness or a disorder, and we take some kind of an artificial medicine that then allows our body to get back on track and to work the way it's supposed to. As I said before, contraception is the opposite of medicine. Contraception is not medicine. It's not helping your body work the way it's supposed to. It's deliberately preventing your body from working how it's supposed to. It's deliberately at least frustrating your sexual faculty. And so it's not aiding your body in its proper function. It's deliberately frustrating it. So it's not like medicine in that way. Natural family planning, even through the use of technologies and test sticks and monitors and other artificial means, is meant to be a way in which we can better understand the human body as God designed it and plan our families in accord with God's design for marriage and human sexuality. And so a lot of people just say, it's kind of like the same thing. Whether you use contraception or natural family planning, either way, these couples, two couples, they feel like they can't have any kids right now, and they both don't have kids. So same outcome. It's if it's the same outcome, why don't you just do natural family planning? And most people are like, well, it's not the same. Yeah, it's so if the means,
just called Catholic contraception.
Yeah, so if the means, I think that just points to the fact, and this is another principle of Catholic moral theology. It's if the means are different, then it probably means that the actions themselves are different. We don't just believe in making moral decisions based on the outcome. We're not utilitarians. We believe that what we choose to do actually matters just as much, actually more so, than just the outcomes. And when we look at contraception versus natural family planning isn't just a Catholic version of contraception. Contraception, again, frustrates our sexual faculty in order to basically just to make our family plans our own way and reject God's plan for human sexuality. Natural family planning, by its nature and definition, helps us to better understand God's creation and better understand human sexuality and plan our families in accord with his design and his purposes. And this is why we say that each and every sexual act is ordered per se towards the procreation of life.
It doesn't mean every sexual act has to create life. That would be absurd.
And that's just not a reality.
Right.
Yeah, there are
possible.
all sorts of examples, and there's examples of infertile couples or people who are beyond the age of fertility. Those sexual acts, though, between husband and wife are still ordered towards the procreation of life because there's no deliberate frustration of the sexual faculty through our own means. And so, yes, I could just maybe highlight one other point from the Catechism that's kind of highlighting what we're saying, just maybe a little bit more clearly. So the Catechism says in paragraphs 23, 69, and 70, by safeguarding both these essential aspects, the unitive and the procreative, the conjugal act preserves in its fullness the sense of true mutual love and its orientation towards man's exalted vocation to parenthood. Periodic continence, that is, the methods of birth regulation based on self-observation and the use of infertile periods, is in conformity with the objective criteria of morality. These methods respect the bodies of the spouses, encourage tenderness between them, and favor the education of an authentic freedom. In contrast, every action which, in anticipation of the conjugal act or its accomplishment, or in the development of its natural consequences, proposes, whether as an end or as a means to render procreation impossible, is intrinsically evil. So the Catechism has a very specific definition there about what contraception is, what they mean by contraception, and why that would be intrinsically evil, because it's a violation of the human dignity and human sexuality as God designed it. And so, anyway, coming back full circle to the beginning, like this video is not meant to be a condemnation, certainly not of Corey Asbury. I don't know him at all. In fact, mostly everything I've seen, maybe aside from this, I like what I see about this guy, and I like his music, and he seems like a sincere guy seeking the Lord. But I think this particular video highlights a huge disparity between Catholics and many Protestants on the issues of contraception. And I think it also highlights a disparity between current Protestants and the historic Christian church. And just as a reminder, the Catholic Church is the only Christian denomination, the only Christian body that has remained unchanging and unwavering, even though it's unpopular, on this really important teaching on human sexuality, on contraception. And for me, I have found it to be just an incredible gift to my marriage to embrace the Church's teachings on this issue. There can be challenges at times and difficulties, of course, but I've found that the Church has wisdom here, and God's plan for sexuality is a great thing for me and for my wife, and just for marriage in general.
And once again, it's not a judgment on Corey for doing this action or any of the people in our lives. I know we both have friends or family,
of course,
both that have taken this action. We love you. We still love you. We'll always love you, but just to stand true to what the Catholic faith teaches about contraception. Yeah. And so it's not a judgment on any individual. Yeah, absolutely. Great point. I know, when I've dove into this before, if anyone's looking for more information, Catholic Answers we'll reach out again, or we'll speak out to them again. Shout them out. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, there you go. Shout out Catholic Answers. Yeah, absolutely. They have tons of resources on every aspect of the conversation we've just had. But if you want to dive deeper into this topic or similar topics related, definitely just check out Catholic.com. If you've got a question stirring up in your mind right now about things, just type that question in, Catholic Answers, and you're going to find a lot of great resources. A really brief resource I could refer you to is a short Q&A article written by Father Hugh Barber, who is the previous chaplain for Catholic Answers. And I think it's just called the Vasectomies Are Contraception. I believe that's the title. A Vasectomy is Contraception is the name of that brief Q&A. It'll take you a minute or so to read. It's kind of a summary of the Church's response to this issue. If you want to go a little bit deeper into a little bit more systematic approach to a Catholic perspective on natural law, on moral theology generally, but specifically on contraception and natural family planning, I would really recommend the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics. Trent Horn is one of the apologists there. He's got a great course on moral apologetics, and he dives into this topics and other moral
moral, theological, and apologetics topics like it. So would highly recommend that.
And one more, even more broad,
Yeah.
just about the Catholic sexual ethics at all is Christopher West, The Good News About Sex and Marriage.
Fantastic.
It's like totally Q&A, so you
Yep.
can flip around, but it is just so thorough and so good, so approachable, the most easy to understand and basic logic about all these questions, a lot of them that you are maybe too embarrassed to ask anyone you know, about what is and isn't allowed within the Catholic sexual ethics, with sexual morality. That book, Good News About Sex and Marriage, so good. Recommend it to anybody.
Excellent. Well, everybody, thanks so much for watching. So glad you joined us today. Hey, if this is video or others like it, if this has been a blessing for you and you want to help us to continue to make more videos like it, I just want to invite you to consider joining our locals community that we're building up, SeanHussey.locals.com. Hope to see you over there. If you haven't already, before you go, make sure you like this video, leave a comment, let us know what you think in the comments below, and subscribe to this channel. Have a great day. God bless you.